And I've been asked by the organizers to strongly urge those of you who have taken the comfort zone in the back rows to consider moving forward so that our speakers might have the benefit of having their audience close. But of course, if you wish to stay in your comfort zone in the back rows, we totally understand. I'll take that you'd rather stay in your comfort zone in the back row. My name is Eugene Rogan, and it is my great pleasure as director of the Middle East Center to welcome you all to an inaugural event marking the creation of the Kurdistan Society, which is the first society in this university's history to serve as a forum for discussion and debate about issues that affect the Kurdish people and their region more broadly. I'm enormously grateful to Ari Momshai for having suggested tonight's event and for sharing the fruit of his networks with our community in the Middle East Center. Ari is not a natural member of the Middle East Center community. He comes to us through marriage by the Blavatnik School of Government, where he is pursuing his master's in public policy. So I must credit my wife's institution with having brought Ari to our community. I can't claim him strictly as a Middle East Center student, but we're very honored to have you with us, Ari. We know that this is a busy time of year for you as you're coming into your final term of the Masters in Public Policy. We wish you success, but before that, could you take a moment and introduce the speakers that you have so kindly invited for tonight's panel?
Thank you, John. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming to our very first event of the Kurdistan Society at the University of Oxford, which I and my partners here have co-established and co-founded. In February, I approached Eugene and told him this year, well, as I work in archaeology and I'm an insider, I told him this year something is going to happen with the status of the Kurdistan region of Iraq. So let's organize and bring more Kurdish issues on the table here at the University of Oxford. Well, thank you again, and he accepted the offer. I said, let's talk about the independence of Iraqi Kurdistan region. Just 1 month ago, exactly on April the 2nd, the two ruling parties of the Iraqi Kurdistan region, the KDP and the PUK, agreed after a long meeting to hold the independence referendum in 2017. So I had good predictions, I guess, Gideon.
Well done. You told them about that.
Yeah. The details of this referendum are being working out. The KDP and PUK have both engaged with other parties. They have been to Baghdad, and they have also engaged with the international community. The details, the following details, could be discussed here tonight with our distinguished guests. On my right side, we have Mr. Ceng Sagnic, who is a research fellow at the Moshe Dayan Center, University of Tel Aviv. And next to him is Mr. Hemin Hawrami, who is the senior advisor to the President of the Kurdistan region of Iraq, President His Excellency Masoud Barzani. Ceng is doing currently his PhD at the University of Tel Aviv. He is the coordinator of Kurdish studies at the Moshe Dayan Center. He has studied back in University of Kurdistan, Hawle, UKH, for his undergraduate. Mr. Hemin Hawrami, as some of you probably know, he has been in politics for a long time now. He's also doing his PhD back at home. University is very locally produced intellectual politician. He's previous to this job he was in charge of the KDP's, the ruling party, Foreign Relations Office. I will start with Mr. Hemin Hawrami, who is very much into the issue of independence and the referendum, to inform us on the latest developments of this now happening story. Please go ahead.
Good evening. Thank you very much for the invitation, and I'm very glad to be here today with all of you. The notes that I prepared to talk to you, it's about the process of Kurdistan's independence and the referendum. And I'll start by that to throw this question, why referendum, why now? And this is important just to go into discussing the situation. Ladies and gentlemen, as you know that the Middle East is going through a very transformation period right now. The post-Sykes-Picot Middle East is over, and we are in the process of having a new Middle East. And that new Middle East doesn't mean a more stable Middle East or more solved problems of the Middle East. But the state-centric of the post-colonial Sykes-Picot is over. That order in the area is over. And now we have more failed states in the area. We have the surge of the non-state actors, positive non-state actors, and violent non-state actors. So that's, if you go through that kinds of the process, Iraqi Kurdistan region has proven that we are no longer part of the affected factors in the Middle East, but also we are part of the players in the new Middle East. And this new system in the area, which we are part of the shaping of it, with the process of referendum and independence, also makes the Kurdistan's positions in the new Middle East in a more prominent position. When we talk about why referendum, why independence for Kurdistan, I am not going to give you a lecture about history, but it's very important. I myself, I am from the Halabja, from the town that was chemically bombarded. So when we ask about many people, many diplomats in Erbil, they've asked me why you are doing referendum and why now, and our answer is that because we don't want our future to look like our past and present. We want our future to be different from the past and from the present time that we have. In the past, ladies and gentlemen, we as in Iraqi Kurdistan region, we have gone through two main processes. The first one from 1921 to 2003, the second one from 2003 to 2014. The first one, we have been ruled by a series of Sunni Iraqi governments, through different Sunni Iraqi governments. In post-2003, we have been in an Iraq that was supposed to be a new Iraq based on consensus, federalism, constitution, democracy, pluralism. So we had some sort of democracy without having democracy in Baghdad. We had some elections, we had some representation of the Kurds, but without power sharing in Baghdad. So in the first processes, as I said, I myself, I am from the town of Halabja. What we got from that Kurdish supposedly partnership in Iraq that was established in post-Sykes-Picot, it was the destruction of our society, chemical bombardment, Anfal campaign, mass graves, and that's what we all got. In the second process from 2003, what we got from this new Iraq, especially because we worked very strongly on having that new Iraq, what we got from this new Iraq right now, Saddam is gone, but Saddam's mentality, the strong centralist mentality to rule Iraq through Baghdad, the political majority of the Shiite majority in Iraq, the disenfranchisement of the Sunnis undercut through series of the Iraqi governments in post-2003, the lack of implementation of the Iraqi constitution, 46 articles of the Iraqi constitution have not been implemented, especially on the Kirkuk issue, on the natural resource issue, and many other federal institutions, they were not built. So, beside that, the lack of national army in Iraq, the lack of national institution, the lack of balanced representation and power sharing in Iraq, and politicization of the Iraqi army and the security sector during Maliki's premiership has led for a more sectarian army in Iraq that has led to the surge of ISIS in Iraq, because that Iraqi army couldn't stand in front of this organization. So with all of that, ladies and gentlemen, in February 2014, it was like a turning point in the new history of the new Iraq for us, when the Maliki started to cut the budget of the Iraqi Kurdistan region. When they started cutting the budget of Iraqi Kurdistan region, and we have been suffering from that sectarian policy of the Maliki government. So through that, the Iraqi Kurdistan region, after that, faced with this fight against ISIS. So in a post-ISIS Iraq is completely different from the pre-ISIS Iraq. So that's why Iraqi Kurdistan region, we don't want that future, the future of Iraqi Kurdistan, to look like the past of going and being ruled through series of the Sunni governments, and also to be ruled through these different kinds of the Shiite governments, because there are new developments in Iraq right now. Iraq is practically divided. The Shiite majority in Baghdad, after the legalization of the popular mobilization forces or popular mobilization units, it's called Hashd al-Sha'bi in the Arabic term. So this is a new era in Iraq, because there are attempts to have a parallel forces in Iraq to the Iraqi National Army, and in the reconstruction of the post-ISIS Sunni areas, and the power conflict within the Shia house, within the Dawah party, in the upcoming elections and the participation of the Shiite militias in the elections, that's going to have a new power dynamics in Iraq. So we in Iraqi Kurdistan region, this is the question that we have. We have proved as Iraqi Kurdistan region that we are part of the stabilizing force in the Middle East. We have been the most reliable partners on the ground for the coalition against terrorism and against ISIS. Based on information from our security services and with the information from the coalitions, in the last 3 years, only in the fight of the Peshmergas against Daesh, against ISIS, in the battlefield, and based on information from our organization, 15,000 terrorists from ISIS were killed in the battle with Peshmergas. We have lost 1,705 Peshmergas as of yesterday, and we have about 10,000 wounded Peshmergas in fighting ISIS. So imagine we had ISIS from 105 different countries and nationalities that they were fighting with us in Iraq, in Mosul and around the Mosul. For the Battle of Mosul, we gave the key of liberating Mosul through defeating ISIS in their defense lines around Mosul. So we in Iraqi Kurdistan region, we have in your own boots on the ground, defeating ISIS militarily on the ground, because on behalf of the free world we have been fighting this terrorist organization. So for the future, if we are not going to solve the issues right now, we believe that federalism in Iraq has failed, and that was our past in Iraq. So we have to have a new formula. And this new formula, we are not going to impose our political leaders' vision on our people, but we want to get this mandate from the people through referendum. So that's why KDP and PUK, as two main political parties, along with the other political parties, we have decided to have referendum in 2017. And we are going to do it in a time frame between July and December. So this referendum is for independence. But ladies and gentlemen, academically speaking, this referendum doesn't mean independence immediately. It starts the process of a serious dialogue with Baghdad about the amicable divorce between Iraqi Kurdistan region and the Iraqi government. So why Kurdistan independence brings more stability to the area? Because we have proved in Iraqi Kurdistan region, ladies and gentlemen, that we have been asset to stability in the area, in Iraq. For example, just to give you some figures, out of 350,000 Christians in all of Iraq, right now 335,000 of them, they live in Erbil and Duhok in Iraqi Kurdistan region. So there must be a reason why Christians find a safe haven for themselves to live in Iraqi Kurdistan region. Because of the deep-rooted multiculturalism and coexistence and tolerance and religious freedom that we have in Iraqi Kurdistan region. Kurdistan proved that we are partners for the regional and international security. And I don't want to go to the details of how much we did for the international security and regional security, but the bravery of the Peshmerga forces by defeating the myth of ISIS in Iraqi Kurdistan and in Iraq. And we have liberated over 31,000 square kilometers from ISIS. I don't know how much that is in miles, but it's 26,000 maybe. So liberating 31,000 square kilometers from ISIS, killing 15,000 of them, being in an excellent coordination with the coalition against terrorism. There are about 20 countries who are represented in this coalition group in Erbil. So we have had all of that coordination and the cooperation with the international community without having a single collateral damages. So that's another sign that how professional the Peshmerga forces, how professional the intelligence and the security services in Iraqi Kurdistan, they have been in their coordination with the coalition forces. We have coordinated and passed all of this information without having a single collateral damages. This is first time in that big battlefield to have zero collateral damages due to that high coordination that we have. And also, in terms of Kurdistan's contribution to global governance in dealing with the IDPs, internal displaced people, with the refugees. Ladies and gentlemen, I read once that the international standard that every 136 citizens, they must have one refugee in a society. In Iraqi Kurdistan, every 4 citizens, they have one IDP. And imagine if all of Birmingham be an IDP and go to London, and London is surrounded by ISIS and there is no budget to oil price. Can you imagine that? That's what we have been going through. So this is important for that Kurdistan's contribution by having all of these IDPs, internal displaced people. We have refugees from Syria, and right now, even from the Mosul operation, we have received 200,000 new IDPs from the area. Even in Erbil and the Duhok hospitals, we have been treating 35,000 wounded Iraqi soldiers and civilians from Mosul without having any support from Baghdad. We had very, very limited international support as well. In terms of Kurdistan's functioning, despite all the deficiencies in our institution, we admit that we are learning in a learning process. We had some sort of corruption in our kind of the administration. We had some sort of deficiencies, and the President Barzani, the KRG itself, they have announced that, and they have reform package with that. They have programs with the World Bank, with the International Monetary Fund, with the Iraqi government to identify the source of malfunctioning of the system and to address it. But despite all of that, I highly recommend you to read a report by the Economist Intelligence Unit, Economist magazine. It's called Benchmarking Success in Iraqi Kurdistan. And if you look at all that 6 global indexes, Iraqi Kurdistan region is 60 to 70 points ahead of the Iraqi government, and we are on the level of the Indonesia, Croatia, and Jordan. With my friends from Jordan is here as well. So if you look at Kurdistan managed to be like a functioning organ, a functioning institution in that new area. So that's, ladies and gentlemen, the independence of Kurdistan is going to contribute more because we want to be independent, we want to get rid of that political economy that we inherited from Baghdad. That's based on rentierism. We want to have our own political economy that will be easily integrated into the world economy as well. So Kurdistan's independence is on horizon. The process of referendum will be in this year, as I said, and then we will start a serious negotiation on that, the terms of this amicable divorce with Baghdad. But despite all of that, we want to have like a Czechs and Slovaks model in our relationship with Baghdad based on more economic interdependency and continue on the joint defense security policy coordination that we have on the Mosul against the fight against the ISIS and the Mosul and the fighting in the Mosul. And also for the international community, our message is that Kurdistan's independence will provide more security in the Middle East, and we will be better positioned to be more reliable partners for you. And also Kurdistan's independence, it means that also we are going to be because Iraq refused to be good partners with us. If they don't accept partnership with us, we don't accept to be their subordinates after that sea of the blood that we have provided. So we don't want that past to come back in the future. That's why our message is that Kurdistan's independence is in the best interest of the stability in the area, is in the best interest of shaping a more fair order in the new Middle East that we have. And I am ready for answering any questions that you have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll have our second presentation from Ceng Sagnic.
Yeah.
And if I could move the microphone closer to you so we can... Thank you.
Thank you for the invitation again. I'm so honored to be here, invited by your institution and to speak with Mr. Hawrami. And this also makes my job much easier because he had almost covered everything about the details. So I'm not going to be talking about how this referendum process will be undertaken in the Kurdistan region, or what is the plan of the KRG to implement the prospective referendum. But I would rather focus on the changing balance of power and even the nature of power in the region. That is a challenging factor for the overall stability that we're all looking for. To start with, in a theoretical perception, one could say that the Kurds were tasked to preserve and restore stability to the region when they were supported by the US, the international coalition, to fight against ISIS. So it was not only an ideological position that the civilized world rejected to accept extremist Islamism to be ruling a territory, it was also about the newly inserted type of mode of governance that ISIS introduced was a challenge to the overall stability. So that the focus about what we're talking about Iraq and Iraq's post-ISIS feature has to do with how are we going to preserve the stability of this region as the central Iraqi government and Erbil are the two main actors in the region. So if we come from this end and go back to what the ISIS war has changed in the region, one would find that there is a huge change in the balance of power. We're not talking about the KRG of pre-2014 that was demilitarized almost entirely because the regional government believed that it could become some sort of a Greece or a Switzerland of the Middle East by not having any disputes with its neighbors and by creating a safe zone for everyone to come for any kind of business or political activities. In 2014, when the Peshmerga forces faced those setbacks in Sinjar and elsewhere in Nineveh, the region went through remilitarization that has turned even to the main changes in the ideologies of how the Kurdistan should be preserved. So by its remilitarization, the regional government contributed to the stability of the region by allowing the Iraqi forces to pass through KRG Peshmerga controlled areas to reach Mosul, without which the operation would be impossible. But in the meantime, 2014 was a different year for the KRG. The same year, the regional government lost its budget share from the central Iraqi government, imposed by the former Iraqi Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki, but implemented also by his successor, Haider al-Abadi. And nobody expects that Iraq will ever have the political capacity to share its own revenues, in quotation marks, with the hostile KRG, because the Iraqi public will not accept it anymore. And that's the reason why Haider al-Abadi is still in power and cannot do anything about KRG's budget. So it was not only a military crisis in 2014, but the KRG went through a significant financial crisis. More interestingly, in 2014, in the course of nearly 2 months, the territories controlled by the KRG expanded by 40%. That's the huge percentage we're talking about. The semi-autonomous region not only started to act as a sovereign entity, but because it was the only way for the US and the international coalition to have any sort of relation with the KRG against ISIS, in the absence of a geographical connection with the central Iraqi government. But the KRG also expanded its territorial control, extending from Sinjar to the south of Kirkuk, with the support provided by the US, the international coalition. With the air support provided for Peshmerga forces, which were seen as an actor for restoring the stability in the region. What else? Kirkuk was incorporated in a very interesting way. I remember in Washington, D.C., the governor of Kirkuk was telling about how were the days when ISIS was approaching Kirkuk. He said he was in contact with an Iraqi general who told him that he was out in the field waiting for ISIS to approach, until he found out that the general had already fled to Baghdad and there was no military in Kirkuk to protect it. And the Kurds incorporated this big oil-rich city in 2014 again, and it's irreversible at the moment. Again in 2014, when the KRG was facing a significant financial crisis caused by the suspension of the KRG's budget share from the overall Iraqi budget, the Kurds have started their, what I call, the creative way of exporting oil in order to fund the war, in order to fund the region in general. But another interesting thing happened in 2014 with the intervention by the US government and the United Nations, and I'm sure Hemin was involved in the process. The KRG and the central Iraqi government signed an agreement in December 2014 for the share of oil revenues. In modern history, it was the first time a central government signed an agreement with a regional government on an equal basis, supervised by international actors, to have been totally legal because it was treated as a client by the central Iraqi government. It was no more the region that had to follow the orders of the prime minister, but the Iraqi government itself recognized KRG as a sovereign entity, to be treated as a client for the exportation of oil through the KRG-controlled areas. These are actually significant developments that we have faced in the Kurdistan region and Iraq in general. The KRG, although never confirmed by the central Iraqi government, the KRG openly said that it had a deal with the central Iraqi government to allow Iraqi forces and even the even militia forces to use KRG Peshmerga-controlled regions to reach Mosul in exchange for an agreement that the KRG Peshmerga forces will remain in the formerly disputed territories that are controlled now. So ISIS did not change the balance of power on only like global basis. Not only in Syria, we have seen significant changes in the Kurdistan region. That cannot go this way. I'm not going to go into tiny details, and I'm sure it will come in the questions. But the thing is, if we are concerned with stability in the region, we have two options. We either need to reverse the entirety of these changes that have been introduced in the course of 3 years to the region in order to be able to restore the status quo in the pre-ISIS era. That means we have to reverse the situation that some 70% of the formerly disputed territories should go back to the Iraqi government's control. If we are talking about an independence Kurdistan, we have to find a way for the Iraqi Kurdistan to annul and denounce its agreement with the central Iraqi government for the share of oil revenues, so that they can receive its budgets from the central Iraqi government again. We have to change so many things in ideological levels, but not limited to. We have to change the mode of relations between Erbil and the rest of the world, because the rest of the world have been treating Erbil as a sovereign entity, which was the only way for them to support the KRG in the war against ISIS. So the question is, can we really change all these? Can we really reverse this? Can we really go back to pre-2014? Can we really convince the Iraqi Kurdish Peshmerga forces to withdraw from Kirkuk from now, until now? Would any government in the KRG accept to risk its popular support by withdrawing all these regions? Can we really cancel the agreement between Erbil and Baghdad and restart oil exports supervised by SOMA, the official state-owned company of Iraq? These things seem impossible. But don't stop there. The changed balance of power is preventing KRG and Iraq to have stable relations. So we are actually challenging our own stability in the region by not allowing two partners of the Western alliance to have stable relations. They have clashing interests because of the changed nature of balance of power. In my understanding, the independence referendum, be it to be followed by an immediate declaration of independence or just remain as an independence referendum, can contribute to several things to the region and the Iraqi government, but most importantly about the relations between the two entities. Once Kurds or the KRG administration proves itself that it held a legitimate independence referendum for its own future, the Kurds will have better chances to have stable relations with the central Iraqi government, and we will have, as the Western world, as the Western alliance, or the alliance against the rising power extremist ideologies in the region, we will see two partners of the alliance having better relations, let alone the fact that the KRG will have much better chances to cooperate with Iraq if it declares independence. And it's not only contributing to Iraqi politics. Think in this way, KRG is a landlocked region, and its only outlet to the outside world is Turkey. It's because KRG has no good relations with Iran or Syria, and these two countries are failed states, and we have only Iraq, which has a non-functioning government and severe problems with the Kurdistan region. So I'll encourage you to think of this way if we're talking about stability. Wouldn't it be good for the entire region if the KRG has an outlet to the Western world through Iraq, not only through Turkey? By legalizing its already de facto sovereign situation in northern Iraq, the KRG could restore stable relations with the central Iraqi government and reach to the world seas through the Basra port. It's not gonna cancel its relations with Turkey, but the Kurds will have bigger advantages by having an alternative outlet to the world, by stabilizing the relations with the same government. That's my understanding of the situation. Is actually can be summarized in several points. First of all, the balance of power in the entirety of Iraq has changed and cannot be restored. Second, what the KRG has achieved in the past 3 years are much bigger achievements it has achieved in the past 30 years. Third, we need to protect the stability of the region in order to be able to prevent the re-emergence of organizations like ISIS and Hashd al-Shaabi, the Shiite militia forces. And the fourth is, like it or not, Iraq is a Western ally. It will stay as a Western ally because of all the investment made by the US coalition for this country to stay as a country. So the KRG and Iraq will always stay on this, in the same club, in the same camp, no matter who comes to power in Iraq and who has relations with Iran or not. So the KRG's restabilized relations with central Iraqi government will further contribute to the stability of the entire region. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. As we come to the end of our formal presentations, we're now going to move on to the question and answer part of the evening. At that point, I have to stop our podcast because we're only allowed to podcast those who've given us their signed consent. So we stop at the front of the room, but I just want to bring to your attention that we do have a television crew that is currently filming and recording. And they would like to be able to record our conversation that follows, but I explained that it only takes one person to say they're not comfortable with that, and we stop everything. So could I just pause and ask if you and the audience are all entirely satisfied that what follows now will be recorded for broadcast? If anyone has the slightest reservation, please do not hesitate to put a hand up. So I have your consent for us to proceed with the television. We proceed with the television. I'd like to open the discussion. I've got a couple of points that come immediately to mind as I've heard these two very eloquent presentations on what I must admit is an important new development, to learn that we are in a referendum year in Kurdistan and that it will be beginning a process of negotiating a whole new relationship, not just with the government in Baghdad, but with the broader region. We're told that the model you have in mind is the Czech Republic and Slovakia in terms of an amicable separation. But as I sat here listening to you describe the situation and the future, the model that came to my mind was far closer to home. You sound a bit like Theresa May, talking about what you hope to achieve in 2 years of negotiations after a referendum that has sent Britain into a very unpredictable direction. The environment, of course, that Britain finds itself in arguably is rougher than that. You only have Turkey and the government in Baghdad and Iran and Syria as your neighbors to contend with. This is not nearly so rough a neighborhood as perhaps Britain, which will face the French, the Germans, the Spanish, and the Italians.
Yes,
but
that's with the position.
With all irony aside, you do sound as unjustifiably optimistic about your prospects as Mrs. May does. Because when I think of those who will oppose the independence of Kurdistan in northern Iraq, the process of negotiation is not limited to Baghdad. And the local environment between Syria and also the measures being pursued by the Erdogan government in Turkey makes 2017 perhaps the least auspicious moment for you to be pursuing independence of any time in recent years, for all the reasons you've outlined about what cannot be reversed about the changes since 2014. So really, I'd like to press you a little bit more, as I'd like to press Mrs. May, on a realistic assessment of the challenges ahead between the goal you would like to achieve, which is honorable and just. Start with how you deal not just with Baghdad, but with Turkey.
Thank you very much for an excellent follow-up. First, it's very important to say that what we do in Iraqi Kurdistan, it is for Iraqi Kurdistan. It has nothing to do with the Kurds in Syria, it has nothing to do with the Kurds in Turkey, it has nothing to do with the Kurds in Iran, because it's four different issues. Second, in 1991, when we had the uprising and we managed to liberate almost all of Iraqi Kurdistan region, then we had the Security Council decision 688. When we planned to have election, everybody in the international community, including our best allies and very close allies at the time, and even the neighboring countries, they were all strongly opposing having elections in Kurdistan, and we did, because it was our right to do elections and to practice our democracy. Second, the issue about Kurdistan, when we say we are optimistic, or we are realists, we are neither optimistic nor pessimist. We are just dealing with the realities on the ground. But the issue, as my president has been discussing this issue and in his honest meetings, even in Munich Security Conference, what we want is to prevent further bloodshed in future. Because as my friend Cengi mentioned, that in post-ISIS formula of power networks in Iraq, if tomorrow the alliance of Hashd al-Sha'bi, the PMF, starts to say that the Kurds are not allowed to be in Kirkuk or in Sinjar area, so definitely we are not going to leave Kirkuk and Sinjar. We will defend it, as we have defended it from the Iraqi army, from Saddam regime, from Daesh, from anyone else, because these are not disputed territories. They have been Kurdistani areas, but with different components in the areas which have been targeted of the ethnic cleansing, Arabization, and changing demography in that area. So for Turkey and Iran, our message is that look at 26 years from 1991 until now. Have we been part of the spoilers for the regional security, or we have been partners and assets? We have been assets for the protections of the area. And also, if you look at Iran, Iraqi Kurdistan region has been less threatening neighboring border areas with Iran if you compare it with all the other parts of Iran. For Turkey, as the same. Since 1991, we had a very consistent policy toward Turkey. Turkish relation with Kurdistan we want to establish on a based mutual interest way, and also Kurdistan's contribution to the peace process inside Turkey. We have been refusing Turkish militarization of solving the Kurdish issue in Turkey, but we have been against also PKK's violence within Turkey as well, because we do believe that now the PKK's violence, no Turkish military solution can be a viable solution for the Kurdish question inside Turkey. And we proved again that Iraqi Kurdistan for Turkey, we have been the second largest market economy for Turkey after Germany until 2014. Out of $12 billion trade between Turkey and Iraq, 9 billion of it was with Kurdistan region. Out of 3,300 foreign companies in Kurdistan region, 1,326 companies were Turkish companies. So that's why the volume of the cooperation between Kurdistan region and Turkey has been very important. And in the end, this message must be heard very clearly, and we have said it. This is Kurdistani people's decision, and we are going to do it. We are just asking for the international observers to be present in the referendum, because if we wait for the regional obstruction, for the regional complaints, and for the international community, international community, with all respect, it's an anarchic society, let's say. It's a self-help that we should have.
But let me push you a little bit. I hear what you're saying, and as I said, your cause is just, and this is an act of national self-determination. Legally, who can object? But you talk about negotiating with Baghdad.
Yes.
Do you equally have the intention of negotiating with Ankara?
First, we negotiate with Baghdad, and also in the same time, we are sending delegation to Ankara, to Tehran, and to give them assurances that an independent Iraqi Kurdistan will continue on playing the positive role and to be part of the protector of the security and the stability in the area. But in the end, the most important thing is between us and Baghdad to reach an agreement, and that in the post-referendum we start that serious negotiation, because one of the projects that we have, for example, with Baghdad is to have an economic interdependence relationship with Baghdad, to continue on the joint defense agreements that we have with Baghdad to face the common threats that will face Baghdad and Erbil in the same time. And here I would like to say that Ankara and Tehran also, there are changes in Ankara and Tehran toward the Kurdish question in Iraqi Kurdistan, because Turkey and Iran, they are searching for having a more regional role, and they know without having good relations with Iraqi Kurdistan region, they can no longer have that kinds of the regional role. Because, for example, for Iran, if without the Kurdish support to Baghdad, Kurdish presence in Iraqi politics in Baghdad, it will be all left out for the Shiite rule in Iran. Because the Sunnis are practically not in power in Iraq. For Turkey as well. Without having good relation with Iraqi Kurdistan region, can Turkey live with a complete Shiite overtaken of Iraq, which will be part of the Iranian sphere of influence, and leaving the Sunni areas and rules, and what will be the future of this? So that's why Iraqi Kurdistan region has proved to be a positive player, and that's why what is needed to guarantee and to give that assurance that Kurd, because unfortunately, I can say relatively, the prism that Turkey, that Ankara and Tehran, they were looking to the Kurdish question was a security prism. But Kurds are not security threats to anyone. We are a nation, but again, as I said, in Turkey, in Syria, and Iran, it's a different context.
Agreed. Thank you very much. And I don't want to keep everyone else asking. Ari, did you have any follow-ups you wish to make before we open the floor to the
Yes,
audience?
I do. If you approach other countries, they are looking for, they say, okay, if you go and negotiate this referendum with Baghdad, we may be able to accept or to deal with it. But what if Baghdad is not going to deal with you on this issue? So, Mr. Ceng, perhaps, do you think that Baghdad is going to accept? Why would Baghdad accept the referendum when it has lost so many territories and it will be a breakup of its territory?
Yeah.
That one doesn't broadcast, though.
Okay, so we don't need it anymore. Correct.
Absolutely.
So the central Iraqi government, with all its components, mostly sectarian groups and so much disintegrated, and a non-functioning government, is still a rational actor. That's, with regards to central Iraqi government, we have to understand this. Its rationality is not about only its ideological position against the Kurds or the Kurdish autonomy, but thank you.
Right to your mouth.
Yeah, so is it on?
It's on. It's on. Just if you bring it close to your mouth.
Okay. So it's not only the ideological position that the central Iraqi government has towards Kurdistan, but it also knows that things cannot be reversed back to 2014. I mean, let's ask this question. The rise of Shiite-centric Iraqi nationalism in the post-2014 era prevents the entirety of the central Iraqi government components to accept, to share Basra's revenues with the Kurdistan region. That means it's not the Kurdistan region's unilateral oil exploitation policy that hinders KRG from receiving its budget share, but it's also the rise of nationalism, which is a Shiite-centric nationalism in southern Iraq, that prevents Iraq to restore the similar types of relations that it had in pre-2014 era. That's the first point. The second point is, I'm not involved with the KRG, but I have the understanding that the KRG is very well aware that if they follow a certain legitimately, legitimate process of independence referendum, by not sidelining central Iraqi government, and by not portraying this independence referendum as a destabilizing factor, if Baghdad rejects its results, or if Baghdad rejects to either supervise or get involved in the referendum, it will be counted on Baghdad's side, not on the Kurdish side, because it contradicts the philosophy that the federal Iraq was built upon in 2005 with the constitution, that the Kurds, the KRG, is a voluntary partner with Iraq. So this semi-autonomous status in northern Iraq is not imposed by the central Iraqi government. Instead, the KRG, hand in hand with the central Iraqi government, constitutes the federal government there.
But let me push you a bit more, because as you said, the KRG's territory has expanded by 40% after 2014, since ISIS came.
Yeah.
Would Baghdad accept an independent Kurdistan without 40 expanded territory, or the pre-2014 Kurdistan?
I don't want to go into like some kind of argument that because Abadi is weak against Maliki and he has to counterbalance him by siding with the Kurds, and the Kurds provide the outlet for him to reach the Western world because that's the second Western ally in the region, and that he creates a bigger alliance against Maliki by siding with the Kurds. But also, would an Iraqi prime minister dare to ignite a new fighting in the formerly disputed territories of Kirkuk or any other region? The thing is, when we ask the question, then the thesis comes with it. If they don't accept it, they will have to go and fight. So who will fight? Who will go into Kirkuk and fight the Kurdish Peshmerga? Who will go into Sinjar and fight the Kurdish Peshmerga? Who will go to, who will pass the borders of Tushurmatu to towards Kirkuk, or who will ever try to go to Khazar or Mahmoud again to try to impose the Iraqi rule? An army that was defeated by a non-state actor back in 2014. Would any Iraqi government dare to do this and losing more credibility in the eyes of the Iraqi population? So this can only be done by the Shiite sectarian group Hashd al-Sha'bi. But let's assume Hashd al-Sha'bi fights the Kurds in the disputed territories. It's not going to gain any credibility to the central Iraqi government to retain its control over Kirkuk. If Hashd al-Sha'bi controls Kirkuk, defeats the Peshmerga, it will not make Kirkuk Iraq, it will make Kirkuk a Hashd al-Sha'bi territory.
Could we have just one quick response by Hemin?
Yeah, just because I heard the word of expansion, I'd like just to clarify that we are not expansionists in Kurdistan, but and I don't think that our partners meant that the Kurds are expansionists. But the question is, before the ISIS came and took control of the areas, those areas, according to Iraqi Constitution, Article 140, they were called disputed territories. So we were in these areas, and the Iraqi government were in these areas as well. But when ISIS came, 5 Iraqi divisions, they lost all of their weapons for the ISIS. And imagine 1,700 military armored Humvees, that each one of them cost $1 million US, that they were given by the international community to the Iraqi army. They were all left for ISIS. So ISIS took all of that weaponry and they fight back. So the Peshmergas liberated this area, but we have not gone to a single Arab village. All the areas that Peshmerga liberated are part of Kurdistan, but we are not going to impose this military success on ISIS in these areas to impose our political will through it. We will have 2 referendums, one for Iraqi Kurdistan, one for this disputed territories, former disputed, which I don't agree with the term, and to decide whether they want to be part of the future Kurdistan or not.
Self-determination. I'm going to open the floor now, and Emre Çalışkan.
Thank you very much for your presentation. And I have a question. Who is your partner in Baghdad? Given the instability in the region, do you see your partner in Baghdad as a legitimate power that holds negotiations with you? And if so, and this begs the question, why is the referendum now? Because you explained the legitimate reasons for you why you should have a referendum, but this doesn't still explain why you should have a referendum now, given the region's instability and other problems.
Let's take 2 or 3 questions. Okay. If we can group a bunch together, Karim.
Thanks very much to the whole panel. I understand and respect Kurdish aspirations for independence, of course, but my sense is that many in the region claim that the KRG has a close relationship with Israel, which is something that is in opposition to the ethos in the region. Can you please comment on this aspect and elaborate on the KRG's relationship with Israel? Bearing this in mind, how does this controversial relationship contribute to stability in the region as you claim? Thank you.
I'll take one more from the front row now. I'll get everybody. We'll take them in rows of 3, please.
Okay, my question to Mr. Hawrami. Also, it's very clear in Kurdistan we have some sort of differences among the Kurdish political parties. Do we have any plan by the Kurdistan Democratic Party to accommodate all these differences before we make a start to the referendum? And also, what we have learned from the KDP Kurdistan Democratic Party and what we have taught, they always put the national interest of Kurdistan first. Thank you very much.
Jen, do you want to get us started?
I'm not in a position to comment on who the KRG has in KRG to talk with. I think Mr. Hawrami is the best person to talk about. But in my understanding and in my opinion, there is a legitimate government in Iraq that the KRG can talk with. And if that government cannot implement its own decisions in the entire territory, that's the other side's problem, not the KRG's problem. KRG will continue to negotiate. When it comes to relations with Israel, listen, I'm from Kurdistan. I live in Israel for the past 7 years. So, I haven't seen, and I've been in the circles that really do policy analysis. I haven't seen those conspiracy theories about KRG-Israeli relations to have any truth. As an academic based in Israel, the understanding of the region are much different when it comes to Israel and KRG. Their interests are much different. The Syrian perception, the Israeli perception is much more focused on, for instance, southern Syria, where Hezbollah is based. KRG is fearing Hashd al-Shabi, which is hundreds of kilometers, if not thousands, far from Israel. So the thing is, like, the Kurds and the Israel, the KRG officials in Israel, or any political party officials in Israel, might have met each other somewhere in the world, does not mean that they're in a tactical or strategic alliance. The Kurds do not need this, that we have to understand. The Kurds do not need to have a strategic alliance with Israel. That's not about relations. Relations are a different thing. But a strategic alliance does not require the Kurds to have an alliance with a country that it does not share a border with. So how can the Kurds receive support from Israel for their conspiracy against the region if they don't have a shared border with them, or Kurdistan doesn't have an outlet to the sea? So those conspiracy theories are always, you can see within all the Syrian pro-regime communities talking about this entire Syrian uprisings are plot by Israel, or even you can say among the Sunnis that even the Khomeini revolution was an Israeli plot. These conspiracy theories do not really add to the conversation we have, And in 2017, in the age of technology, with the information technologies, it is very hard to hide relations. If somebody visits, somebody will take a picture, put it on Twitter, it's everywhere. Never done. Thank you.
Yeah. Concerning who is the partner in Baghdad, it's a really very important question, but up to this moment, Prime Minister Haider Abadi is that partner, but we are not expecting him to be the one to deliver the Kurdish independence. So that's why we have to negotiate with the National Alliance as well. But to be very, very honest with you, when Maliki decided to cut the budget of Kurdistan, we have been expecting the Marja'iyas, the Shiite reference in Najaf or in Karbala, to say something against that, as they did in 1965, when the Iraqi army at that time asked Najaf to issue a fatwa that killing the Kurds is a religious duty. But they issued a fatwa that saying killing the Kurds it's a crime and it's against the principle of Islam. So none of the Marja'iyas condemned that decision by Maliki. None of the Shiite political parties condemned that decision by Maliki. And most recently, the one that we felt that is very, very close to Kurdistan was Ammar al-Hakim, in one of his interviews on live TV in Egypt. He was talking in a way that was echoing some kinds of this backward nationalistic vision on Kurdistan's independence from Baghdad. So that's why these are the partners that we have. We don't have any other option we have to deal with. But the most important thing, ladies and gentlemen, here I would like to share with you the advice and suggestion that we have received from our friends in the international community, that it's very, very important that Kurds should start the process of dialogue with Baghdad. That doesn't mean necessarily you can reach an agreement with Baghdad. That doesn't mean that Baghdad will accept this dialogue. But it's very important for the international community that the Kurds are willing, practically, that they want to reach an agreement through dialogue with Baghdad. So we will do that, and we will follow that kinds of the dialogue with Baghdad. Concerning the referendum, why now? The question is that because we want to prevent this future conflicts with Baghdad. And actually, it's Baghdad was separated from Kurdistan. Because in 2003, we are realistic again. If Iraq stayed a constitutional country, a democratic country, a federal country with the full implementation of the constitution, with a full partnership and federal region of Iraqi Kurdistan within this kind of Iraq, would have been much more stronger than a landlocked, independent Iraqi Kurdistan. But now, Baghdad, with the cutting the budget, with this party politics, sectarian politics in Baghdad, the political Shiite majority in Baghdad, Baghdad turned to be like a threat to Kurdistan region instead of being the capital to protect Iraqi Kurdistan. So that's the question that we don't want to go, and because we know that the referendum starts the process, that process might take some years. That's why the Kurdistan political leadership needs this mandate from the people to start that process. Concerning the relation with Israel, I don't know, the Israeli flag is in many Arab capitals in the Middle East, and why that has not contributed to the instability in the area. We don't have any formal relationship with Israel. We don't have any sensitivity toward the Jewish people. We are proudly saying that Iraqi Kurdistan region is the only country, is the only area, hopefully in future will be a country, is the only area in the Middle East after Morocco that we have a special directorate for the Jewish community in our Ministry of Endowment. And we are very proud of that mosaic in Kurdistan region. President Barzani's village, Barzan, has the remnant of a synagogue and a church and a mosque, because that's part of our culture. So we are very open, so we are open-minded society, we are very tolerant society. And again, the whole Middle East itself is a failed region in the world. The highest numbers of the civil wars in the world, it's in the Middle East. The sectarian conflicts, it's in the Middle East. 10% of unemployment, the highest unemployment rate in the world regions, it is in the Middle East. Middle East contribution to the global market, to the global economy, in terms of exports, it's 4.6%. Germany alone is 6%. All of 22 Arab countries in the Middle East, they export less than what Switzerland is exporting. So the whole region is a failed region, and it needs a restructuring based on the borders in the current Middle East does not reflect the realities on the ground. So that's why, do we need order or stability, or to keep the borders of the instability and the disorder? Kurdistan region this is a start from the Iraqi Kurdistan region, and how we prove that we are part of stability and independent Kurdistan will make it more partner in the stability area, because terrorism is going to be a phenomenon, a threat for the next decades to come. Who are your reliable partners? We have to find the environment that created terrorism. Because ISIS is the symptom. But we have to go to the root cause. And the root cause is the lack of good governance in the area, is the hatred, ideological, the ideological presence of that is fanning the flame of terrorism in the area. And as I said, the borders that is not reflecting the realities on the ground.
Well, Mr. Hemin, could I bring you back to the question of stability within Kurdistan itself? And the last question, which is addressing internal... Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Concerning the stability, Kurdish politics, like British politics, we have differences, definitely. But I have to be, here I have academic hat, we have to be objective. Look, if you look at measuring Kurdistan's maturity in terms of political stability, in 1994, I was one of it. I was head of KDP Student Union. We were part of the Civil War. I have some friends here that we all fought in the Civil War. Why? Because we had some minor political difference that had led to Civil War. But I admit also I have been part of this political tension 3 years ago. Some of those who are following Kurdish channels, they know me that I was part of the political tension. But that hasn't led to a violent tension. The Peshmerga stood together without being part of the political tension inside Kurdistan. So we have a lot of politics, Kurdish politics, we have a lot of differences with PUK, with the change movement, with all the political parties, but for the referendum we don't have that differences. And we do hope that that's why we have suggested to PUK to change to all of the Islamic parties. We can use referendum for strengthening the Kurdish house and to make it more, and to use it as a vehicle to solve all the other problems that we have. And here the good news is that, despite all Kurdish politics, but on referendum we are on the same page.
Thank you very much. Next round.
Can I add a sentence to this?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Just to contribute to something that I've been following, the stability things very much. I encourage people who wants to learn about the Kurdish stability. Just look at the economic bonds between different political parties, between Erbil and Soleimani. Everybody expected infighting in the Kurdistan region in 2015 when Hakim was really involved in the issue. But the question is why why do we expect the Kurds to the KRG to go into war when there are political disputes? Because we continue to focus on what was in 1994. In 1994, there were no economic ties between these predominantly KDP dominated regions and the PUK dominated regions. Today, we have a very strong economic relations with them, and those relations remained despite all those political issues. And I personally believe what prevented, what brought about a resolution in 2015 was economic ties, and what will always keep Kurdistan united, Iraqi Kurdistan, I mean, is the level of development, a similar level of development between the regions and the economic ties that they have established since 2003.
Thank you very much. Ezgi.
Thank you very much for this presentation. I mean, as far as standing together and being on the same page goes, you have underlined regional stability many times, but you haven't mentioned another Kurdish entity, PYD/YPG. And for your reason, for your rationale as why independence now, I mean, because you say the Iraqi Kurdistan will bring stability, and that you are a tolerant, safe haven for different ethnic and religious communities. That's what the Syrian Kurds say in regards to Rojava. So in that sense, what is your reasoning to have for example, a good relationship with Turkey when Turkey actually sees this in binary terms, while KRG are the good Kurds, but YPG Syrian Kurds are the bad Kurds. So, and you keep underlining that this is only about Iraqi Kurdistan, but obviously it will have a perspective, end results for the Syrian Kurds too. Why do you intentionally disregard that part of the region and never mention it as a U.S. ally, which is actually fighting with the U.S. More than the Peshmerga?
Thank you, Aziz. Sarah?
Yes, thank you. I shall also start with my simple question with my sympathies with the Kurdish people, not only in northern Iraq. And this truism of Charles Malik that in the Levant there is one too many people, one too few countries, is something I also agree. But my question is what has been somewhat touched upon.
Sarah, could I ask you to make it a little louder? I'm so sorry.
All right, so my question is not only about the hostile environment, the hostile neighborhood of Kurdistan if it was to secede, but also the serious political problems that you have with regards to Parliament, the Parliament Speaker who was banished from Erbil, and then also the presidency. I mean, these are not entirely like the crisis that we have in Britain, although you did seem to liken them to each other. So this is basically my question. I mean, perhaps is Kurdistan ready to secede when you have these serious crises? And you mentioned failed states in the region, but I was also thinking about South Sudan, which seceded and suddenly became a failed state as well.
Any question? Yeah?
Yes, please. I wanted to go back to something that was mentioned briefly. I think it was referred to as military setbacks in 2014, which of course is a sort of innuendo for the Peshmerga, as I understand it, the KDP Peshmerga, abandoning their posts in the Sinjar and fleeing without giving the Yazidi population any warning that they were doing so. Mr. Sagnic, you seem to suggest that these setbacks were linked with the economic crisis that the Barzani government was going through at the time. Would you, Mr. Hawrami, would you accept this position that it was that the KDP were unable, as opposed to unwilling, to defend the Yazidis? And if this is the case, then why was it left to the YPG, who, as I understand it, have far less funding, less American weapons? Why was it left to the YPG to save these civilians?
one last question, and then we'll take your answers, please.
Following on from that first question mentioned a few moments ago, what are the reasons for the current KRG administration's ongoing blockade of Rojava? With the independent referendum around the corner, is it because they perhaps feel ideologically threatened by the success of BYD? Or as I mentioned earlier, related with regards to the economic relationship perhaps independence in Turkey, but if post-independence, is that valued more than solidarity with Rojava? And if there is independence in the future, can we expect to see this policy change?
Thank you.
And this is a sympathetic audience.
Yeah, thank you very much for all the questions, really, and I'm very pleased to have these questions, and because I found that part of it is lack of information, not about it, and I appreciate that, and I would like to invite you, all of you, to visit Kurdistan and to visit the areas that is not like what you just mentioned. First, I completely disregard that Peshmergas of KDP abandoned or they didn't fight in Sinjar. I told you, when ISIS took over Mosul, they took over the weaponries of 5 divisions. We, as the one reason that we want to be independent, because we want to have a stronger army in the area. We were under 2 embargoes, one by the Iraqi government, one by the international community. We were not allowed to have even end-user certificates to buy weapons for our Peshmerga forces. And all the weapon systems that were given to the Iraqi army, they were controlled by Maliki, and that's why they all left it for the Iraqi regime. So the balance of power, when they attacked Mosul, they seized Sinjar, and if you go to Sinjar area, between Sinjar and Rabi'a, it's 70 kilometers. They were fully controlled by the Arab tribes, Jaheshi tribes, that they were all Baathists, and they were turned to ISIS, and they turned the back, and they were controlling the back of the Peshmerga forces. We have not abandoned Sinjar, and the YPG, we thank them when they allowed the Kurds and the Yazidis from Sinjar area to go through Rojava and to come to Duhok. But the question is that we, who liberated Sinjar, the Peshmergas of Kurdistan, we have paid the blood of 607 Peshmergas to liberate Sinjar. Why there's no mention on that? And the question, we are not blocking the border with Syria. That's why I said part of your question is lack of information. For your information, in 2012, President Barzani supervised the first agreement between PYD and also the other Kurdish, KNC, Kurdish National Council. And they decided together to rule the border areas, border gates, 40 people from all sides. Since that time, PYD has not allowed a single one from the other Kurdish parties to be on the border gates. And they have been imposing a lot of custom in the area. And the border gates, they have never ever been closed in front of the humanitarian support. But all of the humanitarian support that they were going to Rojava, it has been controlled by the PYD, and it has been distributed under the name of the PYD, not under the name of the international organization that they were providing this international support that they were sending to Rojava. We were the one who sent Peshmerga to help PYD and the EPAGA, YPG, to protect Kobane from the fall. But the question to you, and for those for all the also PYD, by the people who are from the Kobane. The same for Sinjar. YPG, we thank them that they helped us for having that corridor for the people in Sinjar. But YPG now, they are saying that Sinjar should not be part of Iraqi Kurdistan region. That's the question that we have. Have we stayed in Kobane? We could have stayed. The United States was with us. We managed to convince Turkey through Turkey to go to Kobane. But no, this is not part of the area that we are responsible for. And that's why the border has not been blockaded. But we have asked PYD to implement the 3 agreements that they signed in July 2012, in November 2013, in October 2014. We have 3 signed documents by PYD, by the KNC, to have a joint administration, to have a joint armed groups in Rojava, with the Peshmergas of Rojava and with the fighters of the YPG, and also to have, it's called Al-Marja'iyya Siyasiyya, one political reference for the Kurds in Syria. They all signed. Al-Dar Khalil was the YPG's representative in the meeting on site in front of President Barzani to have all of this. But after signing the agreement, it was just ink on the paper, and they have been arresting. Have you asked this question, why there is no activities for the other political parties in Syria and Rojava? Because PYD is PKK, my friends. PYD's ideology is PKK. They don't accept pluralism. They believe that they are the chosen one, And they don't accept why there is no other Kurdish political party in Turkey. How many of the leaders of this non-PYD political parties have been killed and assassinated and they have been put in prison? We are not against PYD. We are not against the Kurdish question in Syria. But when I say this referendum is for Iraqi Kurdistan region, because we have that reality. In post-World War I, there has been 4 countries that the Kurds were divided on. We have 4 different types of the revolution with 4 different contexts that we have. And Iraqi Kurdistan region is responsible for Iraqi Kurdistan region. The other question that whether Kurdistan is ready or not, we are not South Sudan, as I said. We are not going to be like South Sudan. The model that we have that we want to follow is the Kosovo model, plus the Czechs and Republics model. And if you regard Kurdistan is not a failed state. Look at, as I said, go to the Economist Intelligence Report on benchmarking Iraqi Kurdistan that was published in 2014, and you'll find out that Kurdistan, despite all the deficiencies, it's a functioning region. It's not a failed region. It's a functioning region, and there are all of these 6 global indexes that I mentioned. Concerning why we are not discussing the Syrian Kurdistan, we do believe the question that we have for YPG, they have lost 1,100 Kurdish men and women for liberating Minbij. But after that, they have handed over to the Syrian regime. The question is that, after losing 1,100 young Kurdish men and women, what was their blood for? Handing over to the Syrian regime? We are not against having any regime between PYD and the Syrian regime, but it's very important that the Kurdish question should have its own independent agenda, not to be either part of the Syrian agenda or Turkish agenda or anyone's agenda, to have your own policy through that unity. That has been our differences with the YPG. And for your information, even in Sinjar, right now, PKK, they have been in Sinjar. Who is commanding YPG in Syria? They are all PKK commanders. Can we differentiate between YPG and PKK? But why PKK is not allowing YPG to be independently peeled off from the PKK and to have their own policy in Syria? PKK used YPG and PYD to gain some international legitimacy and some channels of contacts with the international community. But the question is, in post-ISIS, what will be the future of the Kurdish question in Syria? Neither the Syrian regime has any program for it, nor the Syrian opposition, and we have been told by the international community that they are using YPG only for military purposes because there is no other forces to fight for Raqqa. They need YPG only to use them for Raqqa. They don't have any political relationship, and there will not be any political future for the YPG in the area. That's what concerns us strategically for the Kurdish question in Syria. And for the blockade of the borders, I invite whoever doubts it to welcome to Kurdistan, to take you to the border area, to give you the data about that it has not been blockaded, and we do hope that to help us also. Whoever wants to come to go to Rojava to see things on the ice, we are welcome to help you.
Okay, they also asked about the parliament.
Yeah. The parliament question, ladies and gentlemen, I wish that we have dedicated all of the panel for that, to answer that question. But we are in a transition period into democracy. The core problem between us and the change movement is the way of electing the president. We are pro-electing, having the election of the president by the people, direct election of the people, of the president by the people. They were saying, no, we needed to have it in the parliament. And for your information, if you go back to the literature of Quran, when they announced their independence from PUK, when they seceded from PUK, in 2009, they were accusing KDP and PUK because the first term of president, he was elected in parliament in 2005. They were saying he's not a legitimate president because he was voted for by parliament. It's an agreement between KDP and PUK, and we should have a direct election of the president. When we accepted their request and we amended the law to have the direct election of the president, they said no, because they knew that through direct election they cannot win. They said we should have the election of the president in the parliament again. And after that, in 2003, president said that we know that the terms of the president is over, and president is not running again, but President Barzani has 5 times asked all the political parties, KDP, PUK, Change Movement, make a consensus, Just introduce someone to hand over the presidency because we are at war with ISIS. The commander-in-chief's position cannot be empty. And we can agree on something that we should hand it over to you. But they refuse to do that. So the parliament right now, the speaker of parliament came to parliament because we voted for him. They had only 24 seats. We had 38. It was based on agreement and our vote. And our agreement, written agreement between KDP and Goran, this is minor political issues. Sorry for making headaches to you. But we agreed that based on consensus, but when they did the meeting on the 23rd of June, they broke that consensus. Because we have a consensus democracy. We don't have majority and minority democracy. So that's why that agreement between KDP and Goran is over, and we have asked for the convention, reconvening of the parliament, but with a different leadership in the parliament. Even we are with the changing the KDP's deputy speaker of parliament, because we need a leadership that can be up to the level of the duties that we have for referendum and for the future of independence of Kurdistan.
Ceng?
I may just add a few sentences because...
Sorry, Ceng, can I ask a different question? Recently, Turkey attacked Sinjar. Could you touch on that one? They attacked both Peshmerga positions as well as PKK positions, or the forces that are more close to PKK in Sinjar?
One big theoretical problem that is currently in existence in all four parts of Kurdistan, and especially in Syrian and the Iraqi Kurdistan, is that in order to gain a political challenging position, the PKK is trying to base the national identity or any identity in the regions it controls to be against or anti-KRG. So using KRG as an antithesis to build up your own identity in Syria is actually damaging the entirety of the Kurdish cause, because it doesn't only strip the Kurds of their Kurdish, their relations with KRG, but as most recently happened, they got rid of the name Kurdistan because it resembled Iraqi Kurdistan. And it's now called Rojava. Sounds like a Latin word, but it basically means west. And then they removed the word Rojava too, and now it's called Shimal Syria, northern Syria. And the thing is, though all those political differences between PKK and PKK-linked organizations, PYD, etc., and the KRG may not last for the next 50 years, but the damage that the PKK has inflicted on the Kurdish national identity in Syria and in Turkey will remain. The Kurds of Turkey have voluntarily accepted to call Kurdistan, the Syrian Kurdistan, as northern Syria. And the Kurds of Turkey have been long offended by the Turkish government calling Iraqi Kurdistan as northern Iraq. And today, just not to have the same name that resembles the Iraqi Kurdistan Regional Authority, the name has changed voluntarily into northern Syria. And since the same organization rules Syria and the Kurdish political movement in Turkey, the identity the emerged identities imposed on the Kurds of Turkey, who have made to accept those damages. So the thing is, we have to focus on using KRG as an antithesis, perceiving KRG as a potential rival whose ideological position can take over PKK-controlled areas is bad for the PKK, is bad for the Kurds, it's bad for Syria, it's bad for everyone because it deviates us from the reality. Kurdistan is Kurdistan, not North Syria. Please.
And also, ladies and gentlemen, we are not against PKK or the YPG or anyone, I would like to underline that. But look at the recent elections of the yes referendum. The people in Bakur, in the north of Kurdistan, in Turkey, they are fed up with the PKK, that the majority of the Kurds in southeast of Turkey, which are the majority cities of the Kurds, they voted 9% more for the AK party than for the no campaign. That's the question. If you look at, in many places, the majority of the votes, if you look at all 24 highly populated Kurdish towns and cities, why they voted yes?
But, Hemin, you wouldn't take that vote as necessarily a free and fair referendum vote.
That, you know,
it has been disputed by observers. No, I mean just to say, that
no,
would be
no, no.
one
You
area
know,
where you
in
would
all
most
the other,
expect.
okay, but in the other elections also, when HDP won 80 seats for the parliament, they were the same claim on the same result as well. So, and I am not questioning the fair and not, but the question is, look at the data that we have right now.
Thank you. I'll just touch upon Sinjar because the question came from the boss of this panel who organized it. Just want to keep him happy. In my understanding for Sinjar is that, you know, we should question it. Did airstrikes on the PKK in Sinjar provide some sort of a legitimacy for PKK to stay there? Did Turkey do this on purpose for PKK to stay there? Because before the airstrikes, if the PKK had withdrawn from Sinjar, it would be due to the KRG's pressure, and it could portray this to its own support base as an agreement with the KRG. But after it was struck by Turkey in Sinjar, now, if PKK decides to withdraw, it cannot explain this to its own support base, and it provides some sort of a legitimacy to it. It's just like in the Arab world. If somebody claims to be hit by Israel, gains legitimacy in the eyes of the Arabs, it goes for the same for PKK's support base. If they're hit in Sinjar, they gain the credibility that they have been oppressed by Turkey in that area, so that anybody who's against their presence in Sinjar is actually siding with Turkey. That is the legitimacy. And was the purpose to have PKK stay there and fight the KDP, not to withdraw? These are the questions that we have to know. This uncoordinated airstrikes on Sinjar, without allowing the KRG to finalize the process of dialogue with the PKK to remove them from this part of Kurdistan, should be also questioned, in my understanding. Other than that, the Turkish understanding of the attacks in Sinjar is anti-terrorism, it's defined as anti-terrorism, etc. But I think the attacks did not continue. The Turkish army does not have the capacity to go into Sinjar, to Syria or to Iraq at this time. So we should regard the airstrikes as a different, as part of a different political equilibrium, I think.
Now I've got a wave of hands, and we're beginning to lose audience. So let's make an agreement here. We get 3 more questions, and we get quick responses from our speakers, and we try and finish within the next 10 minutes. I've got 4 hands. All right, 4 questions, but it's still the same rules, guys. Okay, so we're going to go 1, 2, 3. Late couple. 1, 2, 3, 4. If I can have your questions very brief, and then, gentlemen, if your answers can be equally brief, we'll start at the front and work our way around. Please.
Yeah, I'm Robin Jow, MA student, International Relations at Oxford Brookes University. I'd like to thank the Oxford University of Kurdistan Society for arranging this, organising this event. I must say that what was once a dream, which was basically on this topic, the independent Kurdistan is no longer a dream, to us Kurds in and out of Kurdistan. My question and my issue, the worries that I have about this, the whole thing, is the issue of Kirkuk. How are the issues of Kirkuk going to be solved? I mean, not long ago, just a few weeks ago, where all the Turks and Arabs, went absolutely crazy and nuts, over a Kurdish flag, to be waved in Kirkuk. So how is that issue going to be solved?
Thank you so much. Please.
Can you already say something about the date or month that you have in mind for holding the referendum? Because you said this year. And second, do you expect an influx from Kurds from other regions, other bordering countries into?
Please.
Assalamu alaikum. Peace be with you. I've just got a quick point. From a spectator's point of view, I find it illogical to state that, this optimism that you have. I find an illogical optimism to be in place with regards to starting a referendum with all the conflicts that the Kurdish people are going through. Now, my original question is this. So we are seeing countries all around the world, and especially in our day and age, which are swaying away from global citizenship, or what we are taught by information technology and by just us being here in this diverse setting. We are seeing that we are swaying away further and further from global citizenship. So what exactly is your? Please, I would like an answer from each and every single individual on the stand as to what your opinion is with regards to the Kurdish contribution to global citizenship, because that's, I think, a main point which should be addressed.
Thank you very much. And our last question.
I want to ask Mr. Hemin a question, because I was a young child, 1992, when we got the first election of Kurdistan, and I think any of our neighbors was not attacked the Kurdish region. The only people being used by Iran was PKK to be attacked the Kurdish region in that time. I want to ask, if we do referendum, do we think again there are some of main politics being used again by neighbors to attack Kurdish region again?
Thank you very much. Gentlemen, if we could have
quick
response.
Can I change his question to another bit? Do you expect that regional neighbors are going to accept an independent Kurdistan? And would they do whatever possible to stop it?
It's been the question that's been haunting the whole session.
The whole seminar is for that today.
Sorry, can I just add that question?
Go on.
Asked, because there is actually a really good point you just mentioned. I believe the independence should come up like sustainable independence. So this is really talking about future. Obviously, we can also problem in the Kurdistan region. But I'm talking, what is your motivation towards sustainable independence? Obviously, we need a sustainable economy, sustainable community. What does actually motivate you? Is there student, community? Is there anything else that you can actually say that, yes, this is our main motivation for sustainable independence?
Thank you. For Kirkuk, definitely there will be no independent Iraqi Kurdistan without Kirkuk. So that's for sure. So Kirkuk is over, but we are not going to impose ourselves militarily. There will be a referendum for Kirkukis to decide, but Kirkuk within Kurdistan will have a special status. It will not be like Erbil and Suleymaniye. We don't care if the governor of Kirkuk be an Arab or a Turkmen, because that's why the special status of Kirkuk within Kurdistan, that's a different issue. For the date and the referendum, I said between July and December, sometime in that area. And influx of the Kurds, we have 251,000 Syrian Kurds who are in Iraqi Kurdistan already. And from the other parts, yes, we have some from Bakur also. From Rojava, we have about 10,000, but they have been there for a long time. Concerning the illogical optimism or the global citizenship, why the poor Kurds are asked to protect that, to keep the global citizenship? We are not yet a global citizens. Let's have an independent state to be global citizenship. Then we want to integrate in this to global citizenship with an independent Iraqi Kurdistan, because right now we are considered Iraqis, and Iraq is out of this global citizenship. So it's not a question of illogical or logical optimism. We want to integrate into the world society, into the world economy, but with this kinds of being with and without Iraq, we cannot guarantee to have that one. Concerning 1992 PK, just for the audience, in 1992, on the 4th of October, our parliament decided to have federalism in our relation with Baghdad. On the 5th of October, PKK attacked Iraqi Kurdistan region, accusing us that federalism is a betrayal to Kurdish nationalism because PKK was asking for a greater Kurdistan. That's history. So now we do hope that, and we do hope that again, PKK is not committing the same mistake when Iraqi Kurdistan is heading toward independence to attack Iraqi Kurdistan. Concerning the sustainable independence, I would like to say that with the continuation of the current status quo in relation with Baghdad and this kinds of the bumpy relationship, we are not sure that we can prevent another bloodshed in the relationship with Baghdad. So Kurdistan has no other solution rather than an independent Kurdistan. And Kurdistan will have a lot of resources to continue.
For the regional, for Ari's question, if we wait for the acceptance of the regional countries, if we wait for the that everything must be prepared, that they will never come. So you have to, in 1992 we did the same, and throughout history, because as President Barzani said, independence is not Christmas gift to be sent by anyone.
Thank you. Very quickly with regards to the internal conflicts while en route to the independence. I've also sensed that that we have to just go into detail of how the thing has happened in 2015, which is called the deactivation of the parliament. The Iraqi Kurdistan parliament is not deactivated. Every single political party has its right to choose to attend to the sessions or not, and the KDP-led bloc is not willing to attend to any parliament session if they want, or the PUK-led bloc if they don't want to attend the parliament sessions. The parliament will be inactive. That's not the end of the world for Kurdistan, so that parliament is not holding any sessions. The current negotiations process between the political parties will definitely reactivate it because, as the Kurdish governance system is definitely based on consensus. And without consensus, no party can counterbalance the rest. Global citizenship, I think Mr. Hawrami gave a perfect answer. I have nothing to add to it. Sustainability, I'd like to go with that. So the criticism is that, or the concern is that, how the KRG will be financially sustainable. Kurdistan, its independent state, will be financially self-sufficient if it declares independence. Well, the Kurdistan is not receiving a penny from Iraq already for the past 3 years. Nothing will change with this. They're not. The KRG is not losing any financial resources by declaring independence because it's not receiving any financial contribution from the central Iraqi government to start with. So if this is the case, while we're talking about the same situation to continue into the post-independence referendum era, KRG is not losing anything. For the past 3 years, with a war ongoing on a front line of over 1,000 kilometers, they remain sustainable. They remain functioning, and I think it will be better for them in the future for Kurdistan to be more sustainable than ever before, because they also defeated ISIS. With regard to regional states, the level of relations between KRG and the regional states is gone beyond the risk that if KRG declares independence, there will be an invasion by Turkey or Iran. These things belong to the pre-2007 era, between 2003 and 2007, when there was definitely such a risk for KRGs to go through. But today, for many reasons that we cannot have the time to discuss, but among them is the strong Kurdish population in those countries, the growing Kurdish political role in the region, KRG's very, very strong relations with the Western world, its successful diplomacy to obtain weapons, the militarization of the KRG Peshmerga forces in the past 3 years that has turned the force an effective regional actor, are all the obstacles for any regional state to intervene in KRG militarily. So we're talking about a post-military intervention period for KRG. The KRG can go through economic blockades, but as I said, if the process goes well, the KRG will not only have Turkey as its outlet to the world, but it will also have Iraq as its outlet to the world, which will counterbalance each other. It will be a more independent situation for the KRG. It's not going to be dependent on Turkish corridor to reach to the world, but it will have better chances to create more stabilized relations with central Iraqi government and use Iraqi territories as well.
Every now and again you attend an academic event that really goes beyond your expectations. And I think tonight's event stands as such an occasion for me. I feel that we've had really quite a thorough examination of truly breaking news from those who have such a depth of knowledge of the political life of Kurdistan going back over the years, but also from an audience that's equally critically engaged. And I know that emotions run very high on this issue. And so for the civil and informed and intelligent exchange that we have had today, I'm personally very grateful to all of you. I'm grateful to Ari Aziz Mamshay for having shared with the Middle East Center community this first event of the Kurdistan Society, which I have to say, for a starter, you're off to a great start. So we've been very honored to be involved with you, and we're very grateful to you. And I'd like to express my profound thanks to our illustrious speakers, to Ceng Sagnic, and to Hemin Hawrami, who have shared, as I said, such knowledge and such expertise with such a willingness to engage in our difficult questions. So if you would join me in extending our warm thanks to